Um, so it's been about a week since I last streamed. Last stream was with Nick Fisher. I got a banger planned tomorrow with Cabrin AI GOAT, bro. I didn't know he fucking operated and exited 14 different yo, what's good, Santi? I'm gonna get back to you after stream, bro. I just had to get a couple shit in order. But yeah, I got a banger stream tomorrow with Cabrin. Yeah, I got to tune in for that one. But yeah, last week we had a conversation with Nick, behind the scenes. If you know, he operates $100 million per year info portfolio. He's not really a Twitter guru. He doesn't like harp on certain funnels. He's like a dead ass straight operator. Owns minority equity in multiple brands. The biggest one, Sub2 Real Estate. They do $60 million a year. He builds real teams, real systems, and real responsibilities, right? And halfway through that conversation, something clicked, right? And it was that most people are solving the wrong problem. So I brought up that, like, hey, I have a really low ticket offer. I don't know if I want to spend money on ads because, the squeeze just wouldn't be there, right? And so while we're thinking about scaling, when it comes to like, oh, we need better hooks, we need better VSLs, we need better ads, we need better traffic. But at scale, like traffic is probably the easiest thing that like you could do. Like everyone could go and get millions of views, right? Activation is the game, and that's what this whole stream is going to be about. Not traffic, just activation, right? Because even me personally, traffic gives me a shit ton of dopamine. Like whenever I check my Instagram accounts and I see a video at 1 million views that I posted 3, 4 hours ago, oh my god, I'm fucking lit. Right, the views go up, the leads come in, Stripe starts to ping, WAP starts to ping, that dashboard starts twerking, right? It feels like growth, right? But really, activation is invisible because all activation is like the first measurable win, right? The first behavior change, the first moment someone feels different because of you, not informed, but they actually feel different, right? And most people they cap out at like 100, 200K a month because traffic hides activation problems. As long as you can get new people in, you really don't need to get active, like get activation, right? You can out acquire weak activation until like your cost per acquisition rises, until your retention drops, until churn starts to compound, until you feel busy but not really sustainable. And Nick didn't really talk about like fixing this but making any better copy, right? He talked about fixing it with defined expectations, capital discipline, cultural design, and activation systems. Kind of like just thinking like an operator. So tonight I'm gonna kind of dive into like one thing: traffic versus activation, what it actually means, why monetization is not always essential, and why onboarding is kind of like the architecture of everything, and why quick wins beat out the entire course, right? And how referrals they are activation multipliers. Um, and kind of why most brands fail because brand convictions were never defined. So I'm not going to talk about theory. At the end of the thing, I'm gonna go through like the live activation exercise I did with Train Solo for like the last week, right? So you guys see like a real example, real system, and real structure. Because if you leave here thinking, how do I get more leads? You kind of missed the entire point of the stream, right? I want you guys to leave here asking, how do I increase the activation rate? How do I turn attention, like traffic into attention? How do I kind of like build believers? Because believers build the business. So let's kind of just jump into it. But where the fuck my camera go? Oh, it's right here. Yeah. So, like I said, traffic is for amateurs and activation is for operators. And this is what I learned from talking to Nick. And so I was supposed to do the stream a week ago, but then I kind of spent all night building out the activation for this low ticket offer. And I was just like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'm not really ready to kind of go in and kind of talk about it on stream. So yeah, like yesterday, like I said, we talked with Nick. He was the first employee at consulting.com. And so this is all from like the conversation. So it's mainly like what I kind of gained from it and then like what I implemented inside of Train Solo. Right. And so, like I said, most people think like scaling info is just better copy, funnels, ads, hooks, and like a better VSL, better content, X, Y, and Z. And that's really just early stage thinking, right? And what scaling actually is, what I gained from the conversation is just you got to have defined expectations, discipline, activation systems, cultural design, and conviction under pressure. And if you miss that shift, you plateau, right? And I could relate to this, right? Because I had the Discord community and we kind of sat all of 2025. I would pop in and out every like 3 to 4 months. You know what I mean? And so there really was no activation. There was really no like, okay, cool. If you join, like I want to get you guys like a quick win. And so even in like the Discord that I run, I'm trying to like figure out how I could kind of get activation systems so I could kind of keep it free and make sure that like, okay, cool, like the squeeze is here for how I want to like how I monetize it. Whereas I kind of pick the best creators and we start a business and kind of scale from there. And so the biggest lie that I kind of see is that more traffic equals more money, and that's kind of not the truth, right? You see all the time where people are like, I get this question all the time, bro. I'm getting millions of views every single month, but I'm not making any fucking money. And it's really because like you don't know that traffic is just acquisition, right? Activation is where all the money is. Activation is where all the retention is. Activation is how you build that cult and that culture behind it. And activation is how you scale super fast. Because if you have a really good product and you have a friend telling a friend to telling a friend telling a friend, you'll never run out of money because at the end of the day, good dope sells itself. Right. And so just for the purpose of the stream, I just want to define that like traffic just equals to me, right? Clicks, views, leads, impression, and reach. And activation is like behavior changes when they have identity shifts, momentum, commitment, and belief. Right. And so why traffic is so addictive is because it's a constant loop of dopamine, right? Every time your views go up, dopamine hit. Every time your leads come in, dopamine hit. Every time that dashboard moves, dopamine hits. Right. So it feels like it's like you're growing, the business is kind of growing, but you're just one rise in cost per acquisition away. You're just one really bad month of churn away from like everything stalling. And so that's all it is just really dopamine. Right. And activation feels super uncomfortable because it requires you to have structure, be really clear what the end goal of like this entire like thing that they bought from you is. It requires you to have discipline and patience because at first it's invisible, right? Because I know at the beginning of the year, I kind of started this activation, right? I ran a 7 day challenge, right? And it was just like, fuck, this shit's fucking flopping, right? You know what I mean? But the people who came through that activation and, put the things to test, like they're finding early success. Right. And so now it's kind of like, okay, cool. How do I take these winners that kind of took these principles from the 7 day challenge, made the changes that they needed to with their info offers or with their growth operating, right? And how can I apply this to everyone that joins? Because people join mainly, I get a lot of beginners inside of it. And so now it's just like, okay, cool. How can I get anyone that comes in, a really quick win, 30 days into joining like a free Discord, eventually getting them to give me money, right? Most people, they look at 100K as the fucking ceiling. I don't think 100K in a month with info is a lot of fucking money, right? Like it's not. I done multiple 100K months off of info with no landing page, like no sales page, just straight direct to checkout links, right? And that's because we're getting a shit ton of traffic, so we don't really have to activate shit, right? But whenever the traffic slows down, or you sell into your audience a little bit too much, or the cost per acquisition rises, right? You really can't out acquire weak activation, right? And so that's why you see the best creators with the that are constantly making a lot of money. They have cult like communities, cult like followings. Whatever they say goes, and everyone loves them inside their community, right? And so they don't really have to worry about like cost per acquisition rising because they know they could always counter that with how they activate their members inside their community. And so what activation really is the first moment someone feels different because of you, not because they feel informed, but they feel different, right? Like for example, I sent out a newsletter on the 3rd of this month, and then someone read it and he actually emailed me today. I'm gonna read the email. Um Just reading this now, corny to say, but I feel slight goosebumps whenever you mention discovering your why. Have to reflect. You might have just awakened me. Thanks, man. That's an example of activation inside like a newsletter. And I got like another someone DM me like saying like, hey, like I feel like the same way reading your newsletters. I'll just go pull up that DM too so I don't misspeak. Let me go and pull it up real quick. You do a really good job of getting the reader to resonate with you. Like this is how I feel reading Ben's emails. I really enjoyed yesterday's. That's exactly what I needed to hear. Talent's always been a thing that's gotten me into important rooms. I'm not disciplined on half-ass things with zero structure just because of blah 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 blah, X, Y, and Z. Some real shit. That was a fantastic read. That's an example of me activating my newsletter, right? Getting them to, yeah, bro, 100%. 100%, right? 100%. Because I'm just being real. Either I'm working or I'm being a degenerate. That's just who I am, right? And so it's like I want to change the narrative because it's just been a whole bunch of degenerate shit. And so it's now it's just like, all right, cool. Let's show you guys the inside of like besides like the short form tweets that you see, which is just me, my ADH brings spewing shit where I could just sit, speak long form on things that I am knowledgeable about and going from there. But back to my point, like those DMs and like the email I got back is just examples of me activating my newsletter, right? Because it's like, okay, cool. I'm getting people to resonate with me. I'm getting people to kind of buy into like the community and the culture that I'm building, right? And so as you know, eventually I'm going to sell you guys info. Like at the end of the day, I'm just building out goodwill. You know what I mean? Some people I'll just partner up with, take 50%, call it a day, scale them just so I can have testimonials and reviews. So whenever the time I drop info, it is. But when I drop info, I want to have a really engaged community. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that everyone has really quick wins, and they have quick wins that it's like, okay, cool. He came in, he paid, he got this quick win. And it makes the people sitting on the outside feel jealous and gets them in. And you have a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, right? And so from my personal experience as someone who's bought a lot of courses, right, a lot of info, if I wasn't activated in 7 days, like the amount of retention in the community always went to shit. The amount of money that I gave them went to shit. I'll never refer them out. And then like my energy behind, like my enthusiasm behind the course would die, right? Traffic doesn't fix that, right? It just hides it, right? Because if you get 100 people in every single day, you could hide activating them. You know what I mean? You don't really have to activate it, bro. I know 100 people are going to pay me X amount every single fucking day. 10 people are going to pay me X amount every single day, right? But then it's like, how can I turn one person into five? You know what I mean? And then have three of those five people give me five more people. You know what I mean? And go from there, right? And so one of the big examples of this was whenever I joined Artisan Lab. Um, I joined because I wanted to run webinars, right? I've said this a lot of times before. I was decent at running webinars, but I had never ran them before. And so when I joined, I had my biggest producing webinar revenue wise. We did like 36,000. And that was like 2 days after I joined. I went through like the webinar portion of Artisan Lab. And for me, that was like, okay, cool. Like I'm lit. You know what I mean? Like I joined for this very specific reason. I got this very specific outcome within my first 7 days. I'm lit. I'm still active in the community right now. You know what I mean? I drop in every now and then, reply. I still hop on some of the calls, not as much as I'd like to, but that's just because life just gets in the way. Right. And that's just like a really good example of activation, right? Because Ben has a really strong community because he does a really good job of activating everyone and making everyone feel like important and getting them a really quick win really fast. And even if the people who, take 6 months to get their first client, they're still improving in their skills, right? They feel like they're a better copywriter 7 days in. They feel like they are making drastic strides and improvement in their entrepreneurial journey 30 days in, right? And that's something that, after I had the conversation with Nick, I sat back and looked at and was like, okay, cool. That's what's missing with all of like my clients, and that's what's going to make us the most amount of money, right, moving forward. And so onboarding is not really admin, right? Onboarding is like the architecture of your entire business if you want to get a lot of referrals, because this is where we determine the behavior of the people. We instill the culture, and we kind of say like, hey, here's the identity of the person that you're going to become with the information that we're about to teach you, right? And a lot of people, myself included, treat onboarding like it's fucking logistics. You know what I mean? Like onboarding fucking sucks. Hate onboarding calls. You know what I mean? But even after Nick, I had the conversation with Nick. I onboarded someone. I was just like, hey, here's like how we're going to interact with each other. Here's like the culture of like how we're going to, my team's going to interact with your team, and here's like the identity that we're going to bring. Like we're going to go full throttle with this, and it's kind of been paying dividends. You know what I mean? And so what a lot of people don't realize is that if someone doesn't feel like your information is worth it in 72 hours, they're never gonna go through 50 hours of course content. Right. And I think the best example of this is Chinese course, right? Whenever I took organic accelerator in 2024, bro, I took the course and then a week later, like no, not even a week later, like 2 days later, I posted a reel and that reel had 100,000 views, like right there and then. Like his course is just dead ass. You follow his course and you go through it and then you post your reel. You know what I mean? And so since I got a really quick win, 1 million views in my first 7 days, you know what I mean? That turned me into like his biggest affiliate. You know what I mean? I was just like, shit, if this shit's this easy and it works for me, it's no reason why it shouldn't work for you. Right. And so that momentum and people feeling like that energy that was like, okay, cool, like it's actually working. If he could do it, so could I. You know what I mean? That's what actually converted people. Right. And so from my experiences the last week, right? The real activation, like in order to kind of have everyone on the same page, you need to have clear expectations, right? You need to have a defined first action, an immediate result, and then like public reinforcement. If you miss one, LTV kind of suffers, right? That's why it's like people will churn out because they're like, bro, I don't really feel it. No one's fucking communicating. No one's sharing wins. No one's showing progress. No one's sharing like, hey, I just got my first car. Hey, I did this. Hey, I did this. You know what I mean? And so if you nail all four in the activation series, then you'll have a really long LTV. People will feel like I'll never need to churn out and kind of just go from there. Right. And so Traffic usually goes, you go from lead to sell, and it's like radio silence from the fucking sale, right? But activation, that looks like, you go from lead to sell to win. Now they have a change in identity. Now they refer you, and now that referral, they have a really strong community, and then that compounds, right? And I'll say, like, Castro Syndicate with David and Mason, they did a really good job of this. Whenever I joined, I was in a spot with my entrepreneurial journey where I was like, fuck, I want to kind of just give up and go back to school. Came in, got a quick win, changed my identity, started referring people in, and I still talk to uh what's good, baby? How you doing? I still talk to a lot of the people that are still in that community, right? And the whole reason is because we all went through like the same thing. We all had like that same experience. We all have the same wins. Not everyone in the community, is doing like the numbers that I'm doing, but we all found success in our own lanes, you know? And so referrals matter a lot. And so I built my entire SEO agency on purely referrals. That's how I got the government contracts. That's how I got billion-dollar companies to work with me, purely off referrals, right? And so traffic costs money. I'm a big organic guy, right? And so, whenever you do go run ads, referrals are going to always lower your cost per acquisition, right? And that's because activated users create organic growth. I saw this firsthand with a trading offer where there was a guy that we were paying out $10,000 every single month from referring people into the community, which was $75. You know what I mean? He was getting 30% of that just because he was winning so much, you know what I mean? And he was referring people and they were referring people. Affiliate kind of works like a Ponzi scheme, you know what I mean? Once you become an affiliate, you get people under you, they start affiliating, you become a master affiliate, right? And so that's when I probably should have just kind of took a look at that and be like, how can we get and how can we multiply this one guy across 10 to 15 different people, different avatars in the community, right? I know we try to do it with a girl, but uh she's not she wasn't day trading the best, so it was a little tricky. Um and so, like, now moving forward, that I'm working on like this training solo offer. That's what I'm kind of working out to. I'm reaching out to everyone that's bought the course, getting a little bit more information about them, kind of tailoring, not like a workout plan, but like, okay, cool. Maybe like the first 20 people, like, okay, cool. Here are 20 avatars. How can we group these all together and go from there? Because at the end of the day, we do want to move into like we have the 147 one-time offer into like a 25. What's good? What's up, Zach? How you doing, brother? Um, we're moving into like the community model where it's just like, hey, if you want to be a part of this, you want to share your wins, you want to be in a group of basketball players trying to change the way that you train and get more minutes, shoot better, X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? We have to activate you, right? Because anyone that's not unactivated will churn. And the thing is, you can't force people to activate themselves. It has to be something that's within the community. You know what I mean? It has to be something that just feels so fucking natural that they have no other choice but to activate. You know what I mean? So it's like you don't want to feel like you're the odd man out. And so what we're doing with Train Solo is that as soon as you purchase, right, you join the Discord through WAP, and then you're gonna go through a 7-day activation series where you post your baseline where you're at. You do a set amount of drills. You post yourself doing those drills in the chat. You have a 3-day check-in, and so you can see improvement if you've done the drills, right? And then you check in at the end of the 7 days, right? And then to take it a step further, we're gonna run a 30-day, combine challenge where it's like, hey, everyone does the same drills. You post your stats. The first three people they get a prize. They get shouted out by the guy on Twitter. You know what I mean? And it kind of makes it more competitive because it's like, okay, cool. If you stay at the top for 6 months, we damn near might fly you out to, one of his games. You know what I mean? You kind of get to spend a day with him, you know what I mean? And kind of just go from there. And I feel like that's gonna be a really good way to activate people and kind of get them to kind of be like, oh fuck, like he cares about his community, the community cares about each other, and it's like I don't want to suck anymore because look at this guy who came in a fucking buster. I was better than him, and now he's fucking killing. You know what I mean? He's at the top of the leaderboards. He went from not getting any minutes to fucking playing a shit ton of things of that nature, right? And so Nick put it in my head that you don't have to ascend everybody. You know what I mean? Because I was like, bro, I need to figure out like a high ticket offer, right? And he was like, bro, you don't need a high ticket offer, right? You just need deeper activation because you could grow your revenue from referral loops, engagement and behavior reinforcement, not just price increases, right? Because it's just like it's really hard whenever my client he's actively like in the NBA and bouncing between NBA and G League for him to give his attention to people who buy and it not feel like a cash grab. You know what I mean? And so I had to get real creative where it's like I took the next conversation. I was like, okay, cool. How can we activate this, right? And another portion of activation, right, is like, okay, cool. I went to a really good engineering school. I could have went to any Ivy League school I wanted to, any highly prestigious academic school in the country, right? So I understand the importance of education whenever it comes to using athletics to get the best education you can, humanly possible, right? And so an upsell is that my parents paid for SAT and ACT coaching, right? I took the ACT and SAT every year since the seventh grade until I graduated, right? And so it's like if we find a really good, partner that can fulfill on this, we could just refer them and take a 30% commission, and that increases our LTV per person because now we have our product that they're getting really good results on, and then we shift all of like the blame and responsibility of if they get good test results to someone else, we keep the main thing, which is just basketball, you know, because at the end of the day, you need to build, like I said it on the last stream, you need to build a fucking cult. You know what I mean? Whether you're doing faceless, whether you're doing it X, Y, and Z, you need to build a fucking cult. Look at the Shade Room. They have a cult of single mothers under their fucking comment sections. Look at Justin LeBoy. He has a cult. Look at uh Deshaun on Twitter, on Instagram, the meme page. He has a cult. So if you could build a cult following with for Faces page. Then when you look at TJR, he has a code. Look at Shelby Sapp, she has a code. Look at Brez, he has a code. Look at Iman, he has a code. Look at Code Emo, he has a fucking code. You know what I mean? All these guys have cult followings, right? Because at the end of the day, culture is activation, right? And so if your community has no identity, nothing that they can bank on, you have just content, not a movement. The activation must be cultural, right? And my thing that I want to do is I want to show people that like, hey, you can go live a quote unquote degenerate lifestyle, right? And still get your shit done and not make your business your whole personality, right? Because at the end of the day, I believe in being the top person that you can humanly be holistically, not just business wise. And I think that's where a lot of people fail is that they build their culture on straight business, but eventually not everyone's overly engulfed in like the business world. I'm the first one to tell you, like, I could care less about business. You know what I mean? I do this shit to keep the lights on and have fun without asking my parents to dip into my trust fund. Like, just keep it in the stack, right? And so, what brand conviction is, you want to ask, who do we fight for? Who do we fight against? What behavior is rewarded? What gets removed? And without this, traffic dilutes your culture, right? And so who do we fight for? Like, for example, for the label, we're fighting for all the people who are fucking clueless. They see all this shit on Twitter. They have no idea where to start, but it's like they don't relate to any of the other creators. You know what I mean? Because maybe it's like, oh, bro, like going to the club is stupid. The going to the club isn't fucking stupid. Most niggas don't know what the fuck it feels like to have 40 girls in their section. You have 4 bottles of 1942, and they're all looking at you like birds wanting to get mouth fed. You know what I mean? They're all screaming your name. The club is fun, and you can use the club for what it is, which is getting a lot of girls and then getting the businessmen to look at you like, how does this guy weekend and weekend have the baddest girls in the club? And what do we fight against? I hate you have to grind 40 hours a day. You know what I mean? All you have to do is grind, fuck going out, go on muck mode. That shit doesn't exist. I make the most amount of money at my peak degenerate, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like I have to out earn my burn. You know what I mean? And so I'm fighting against the people where it's like, oh, you have to do this. Yes, you have to invest. Yes, you have to be smart with your money, but you should also enjoy your money. There's no point of enjoying your money when you're fucking old. You know what I mean? That's like, it's not cool being 34 years old in the fucking club. You know what I mean? It's not cool. Like, that's just lame as fuck. You know what I mean? What behavior is rewarded is for the people. Like, I met my business partner, right, through the Discord, right? And we ran up Crazy Chicken. I like to partner with people in the Discord. So if you come in the Discord and you don't really know shit about shit, and you just show me that, hey, you're willing to work hard and put in the reps, I'll partner with you. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, okay, cool. Here's the strategy. Here's the offer. You know what I mean? Build the page. It should work because this is the exact strategy that I'm using on this exact fucking offer. Just find a different fucking angle. You know what I mean? And go from there. And what gets removed, I'm quick to ban niggas. You know what I mean? You get in the community, you start talking shit about me, on God, I'm banning you. You know what I mean? You start, being a menace in the community, on God, you're getting banned. You know what I mean? 'Cause at the end of the day, I want to keep it positive. I don't care if niggas talk shit to each other. You know what I mean? Because if it takes it there, y'all niggas can meet up and box about it. You know what I mean? But without all of this, you're going to dilute the culture that you're trying to build inside your community, whether it's faceless, whether it's personal brand, or whether you're growth operating. And you don't ever want that to be the case. And so traffic without activation, it looks like a lot of people having really big launches and then they die down, right? A really big launch and they die down. And that's why you see people like they go run a monthly challenge funnel and that's all that they run, right? They have dead communities. It's like a fucking ghost town. I was talking with someone on Twitter. He has about 34,000 followers on his YouTube, 1,000 people in his Discord, and he was like, it's dead in here. You know what I mean? And that's because they're doing a really poor job of activating, right? They don't really have a clear set, like, hey, you join this, free community, you take the 7 day challenge, right? And at the end of the 7 days, you start upselling them on take three, you know what I mean? Where they kind of get their first quick win. And then by day seven, they're ready to kind of give you like a high ticket offer. They're not really getting any referrals and they're having constant like acquisition stress, right? This is why people feel busy, right? Because if every day you have to figure out how the fuck you're gonna make a dollar, you're gonna feel fucking busy. And when you don't make a dollar, you're not gonna feel fucking stable at all. And so activation without traffic, right? I think I do a really good job of this, right? I have a small audience, you know what I mean? But the retention rate's high, right? I've sent out a shit ton of emails since I started. I've only had 3 people unsubscribe, and 2 people unsubscribed when I sent the email that said the stripper loves me. They didn't even fucking read it. They went and they fucking unsubscribed. And the funny thing is, I know both of those people IRL. The third one he unsubscribed yesterday. I think that unsubscribing shit personal, right? But even with the Discord, right? All in, I think we're at like 530 right now, but I think I've had maybe 150 people leave. But it was a dead Discord, so I don't fucking care if people left because I didn't do shit and I was just enjoying life, right? It's a lot of word of mouth and I have a high LTV. Like from my YouTube, I have under 1,000 views on it, but I've made $5,000. You know what I mean? That's really good. It's really worth my time to go out and stream, right? Because it's like if once a week I could go sign one 5K deal off of YouTube. I'm fucking chilling, right? Yes, the growth is going to be a lot slower than the other creators, but the community that I'm going to build is going to be a lot stronger because you're going to feel a lot more of a human to human connection. As like if you DM me on Discord, I will respond to you. Like I will answer all your questions until a certain point. You know what I mean? I'm just like, bro, just fucking pay me, and you can ask me questions all fucking day. You know what I mean? And then we kind of just go from there. But that's kind of like what activation without traffic kind of looks like, right? And the real shift is when you know you start changing people's beliefs, right? When you start changing people, where if you're in the trading age, from I'm a helpless day trader to I'm a profitable day trader, or I'm a fucking shitty copywriter into I'm a good copywriter, or I don't know how to growth operate into a good growth operator, or from um I don't know how to do affiliate until they start making money with affiliate, right? Because I troll Letharjo on Twitter, but that's really my dog, bro. That's really my dog. But he came in on New Year's Eve. He signed up for a mentorship. Now he's making 15K a month. And he was telling me, like, hey, bro, like, you give me a lot of sauce. I take the time out of my day to answer the sauce. If I don't have it, I point them to the right direction. Like, hey, go ask this person, tell them I sent you, and they'll go answer all the questions that you have for you. You know what I mean? And that's how I'm like activating him. You know what I mean? And so I'll probably have him on stream if he ever wants to come on to kind of give his experience, right? Because at the end of the day, belief scales revenue. The more people that you could get to believe in themselves, right? The more they believe in yourselves from what you teach them, the more that they believe in you. The more that they believe in you, the more willing they are to go vouch for you outside of this. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, belief scales revenue and traffic scales exposure. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you could go get billions of impressions, but if you don't know how to activate these impressions, you won't really ever scale your revenue past a certain point, right? And so, me personally, this is why I've been avoiding activation because it requires calls, systems, follow ups, tracking, and repetition. And if you read the email that I sent out yesterday, you know that I struggle with systems and repetition. You know what I mean? And so, I hate getting on calls. You know what I mean? And so, it's like now, it's like, okay, I see the benefit of getting on like a weekly call and activating all these people, right? I see why you need to build systems. I see why you need to follow up. I see why you need to do the same shit over and over again, even if it's boring as fuck. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you can't outsource activation. I can't ever outsource like getting my Discord community to actually want to go make money with the method that I'm teaching. Because at the end of the day, the person that I outsource it to won't care as much as me, right? It's not impossible to outsource activation, but the person that you're outsourcing to has to be there from day one and has to understand the vision and what you're actually trying to go and build, right? And so the difference between an amateur and an operator, in my opinion, is just how do I increase activation rate versus how do I actually increase and get more leads, right? And so a metric that I kind of came up with this next week that I kind of want to track is, what percent of buyers experience a measurable win in 7 days. And that's why, as I show you guys the activation series, you'll kind of see why I have it set up that way, because I don't want to be traffic dependent, right? Because this creator on this low ticket offer, like I said, he bounces between the NBA and G League, so he's not really time dependent, so he can't post content, and it's not worth the squeeze to sell, like to run ads. You know what I mean? Because 147, you know what I mean? If the car acquisition is $50, you know what I mean? That's $90. So the splits doesn't really get worth it, and it's not really worth his time to do it for $60 per person. Right. And so how we're going to kind of scale Train Solo to 100K a month is that we need predictable activation and not unpredictable acquisition, you know. And so AI kind of helps with activation just because you can kind of get, content velocity, you can build funnels faster, you can do your research, but it's never going to activate it. Only the experience of the person that feels like the human interaction, that's the only thing that can activate somebody. Right. And so this is just more so like talking about like the attention spans that this shit really isn't shrinking, bro. The quality is activation increases intention because activated people care. And like I said with Nick, the people who do the best, they have really good retention rates on their videos inside the communities because it feels like they have that interpersonal parasocial relationship with the creator. Right? They're creating a community of people who care about them, who care about what they do, they care about their mission. You know what I mean? And that's what activates people. And that's what gets people to pay attention longer. That's what people that gets you to go and complete a 50-hour course. That's what gets people to go and stay in communities for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you know? And so, stop loss and activation moving forward. Um, so this is like a new rule that I'm gonna kind of implement. And so it's like the activation is weak, the traffic is just gonna become expensive. You know what I mean? And so that's why guardrails matters. And so I'm gonna kind of go back and read some of the questions that you guys have, and then go from there. Um, and so, well, like Valentine, to answer your question on why I'm 100% work mode and 100% BGen, um, I'm a real life degenerate. Like I'm a real life degenerate, but I'm also a businessman. You know what I mean? Like I'm also a businessman. So it's just like in order for me to fund my degeneracy, I have to be a businessman. I can't just be fully degenerate. You know what I mean? So that's why I work really hard during the week and on the weekends. I take that as time to reset. And what's the best way to reset besides getting drunk with bad bitches around you? Like, you know what I mean? Like I like hanging around bad bitches. Bad bitches are expensive to hang around with. So I have to go make as much money as humanly possible. You know what I mean? And so you notice that you get a lot of signups on only on my challenges instead of trading itself. Like what do you mean by that? Oh, you have a good churn but a good strategy. DM me. Let's see if we can we'll figure it out. Because I don't want you to expose your whole business on stream. But if you DM me, like we'll figure it out, and then I'll give you a couple of tips and trades, and then maybe we can work together. Because I do like working in like scaling trading offers because they're really easy to squeeze out of. But the best way to feel activation, um, whenever you do faceless is that you need to build more so of a community, right? And so whenever like, I'll say whenever I was running the gambling pages, it's really easy for me to build a community around being a degenerate gambler because that's what I was in my past. I used to bet thousands of dollars on esports, right? So I understand everything that I was doing, and you can build a community based around people who are feeling a certain type of way, and then you funnel them into like a free Discord. You know what I mean? So that way, people are dropping memes, they're dropping slips, they're dropping this, they're dropping this, to where so you can still be faceless, right? Because now you want to master community. You know what I mean? You never have to put your face behind it because at the end of the day, people aren't really following the page, they aren't following the community for you as the individual, as the content creator. They're following the page and they're fucking with the page for you as the mission and what you stand for. Right. And so you have to kind of sit back and be like, okay, what's the mission that I stand for? And what do I want to, like, what propaganda do I want to push into the world inside my community? You know what I mean? Like, if you go scroll at all my announcements, half of them, or hey, I'm going to the club, who wants to come? Or I'm doing this, or hey, I just bought this, I just bought this. It's just me, like, basically, like, flexing. You know what I mean? But I'm pushing the propaganda, like, hey, the work is being done, but here's what the money does with the work. You know what I mean? I'm a really big believer in having fun, right? But yeah, a lot of people overlook the work because at the end of the day, the work is boring. You know what I mean? Like I had this conversation with one of my good friends a couple of weeks ago, right? And he was telling me he was just like, like no one understands what you really do for work, right? And no one ever pays attention to like when you post about business, right? Because you post about, you might post about business a little bit and then you'll go pop 50 fucking bottles the rest of the month. What do you think is going to resonate more, right? You posting about business 3 times a week, or 3 times a month, or you posting 50 bottles. You know what I mean? Are you posting you at dinner here, you shopping here, you doing this? You know what I mean? And so now it's kind of like, okay, cool. Like, let me show you guys how like the work is actually that actually gets done, because y'all already know, like, if you follow me on Instagram, you already know I'm gonna do dope shit on the weekends. You know what I mean? And so yeah, that's that. Jezbrez, join the Discord and DM me, and then we'll have a conversation, bro, about activating your trading community, because there's a lot of things that kind of go into that. You know what I mean? And it's not just like you dropping a challenge funnel and going from there, because it's like a very obvious sell. And you kind of want to backdoor this, in my opinion, you kind of want to backdoor to sell inside of free communities. You know what I mean? You want people begging you for mentorship and X, Y, and Z. And you want the other community members that are winning getting good results, right? Because no one gives a fuck inside your trading community if you're winning. You're expected to win inside your trading community because you're the fucking trader. You know what I mean? This is your fucking offer. This is your fucking information. You know what I mean? So that's why you win. So if you're the only person winning off your strategy, no one in your community is going to care, because like, why the fuck am I in here? You know what I mean? He hosts a fucking monthly challenge funnel. He breaks down his strategy and no one fucking wins. There's no fucking proof that this works for outside of, Jez Perez. You know what I mean? And so back to, the presentation, right? Is so if the activation rate is weak, the traffic is eventually going to become expensive, right? And that's whether we're running ads or it's going to be expensive on the creator to kind of create the content that I'm looking for, right? And that's why guardrails matter, right? We want to find a way to activate people as much as possible off the rip. You know what I mean? So as time gets on, the payload that's required from the creator financially, or when it comes to putting in work, it decreases substantially. And so a little self-diagnosis that I kind of been doing is like, do we have a defined first win, right? Does the onboarding feel engineered, right? Are we tracking activation rate, or are we just like buying traffic? Are we just like putting like our creators on the content hamster wheel, and kind of saying like, you're gonna push out content over and over and over and over again, over and over again, right? We're just gonna run unlimited money on ads, right? We're not really gonna activate people and see how they feel and kind of just go from there, right? And so I feel like once we kind of get this all implemented, we'll make a shit ton more money. And the final frame, right, is that traffic gets attention, but activation is what actually builds believers, and believers is what builds your business, right? You need a lot of people that believe in you month over month, that are willing to pay you reoccurringly, the low ticket offer and the high ticket offer every single month, in order to reach, a million plus a month. Which I haven't done, but I do think I could get an offer to a million plus a month by the end of this year, by the grace of God. Right. And so let me go and throw this up real quick. I'm going to go share my screen on Discord, but let me make sure that I have the right stuff pulled up. Right. Seems like you're working with people that don't teach BS, but also work on having their customers succeed. What are your thoughts on niggas running offers on shit that don't do themselves and sell slop? Um, it really depends, bro. Like, I have a moral compass, you know what I mean? And I also know how it feels to not have. So I don't really want to work with people who aren't doing it. But at the end of the day, you're just selling information. You don't have to do what you're actually selling in order to have good information on what works. You know what I mean? They might not be in the field every day, but they're up to date with everything that happens, just because they want to run the best community, right? Because it's like, look at Iman. He sells information and he doesn't run a fucking agency, but he sells people on how to run an agency. But he stays up to date and he sets the trends on what works in the agency. So that's a good example of someone to work with. But sometimes like there's a like Ryan Dodgy, Ryan Wilson Dodgy. He's a trading influencer. All he does is posts demo accounts, right? But his strategy works. But he's not going to risk any of his own money trading, because he sees trading as gambling. You know what I mean? He says, don't ask me to post any fucking payouts, any proof that I've past funded. Either you take my strategy and you work with it, or you don't. So it just depends, right? You have to kind of see how slimy you're willing to get and how slimy like your clientele or your client actually is, and kind of just go from there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And so let me kind of just go and kind of walk you guys through the Discord that I did for Trend Solo. You know what I mean? And so as you can see, I have like the master one. I haven't built it out where I have like everything kind of done, but I'll walk you guys through like the flow, right? So the people they join, they get automatically put into rookie, right? And so there's four roles that you could have, right? Five. You could be a rookie, which just means let me do this, right? There's five roles that you could have. You could be a rookie, which just means you're in high school, trying to figure it out, or you're below high school. You could be college level, which just means you're playing anywhere in college. Pro level, you're playing anywhere pro. Solo elite just means you're consistently performing, you're consistently in the community. And 7 day killer just means that you finish the 7 day results, right? And so how the Discord set up, whenever I kind of get done everything and I kind of have all of this kind of like typed out, is that first when they join, they're going to have a weekly onboarding call. We're going to shoot for every Sunday, depending on his schedule, where he's going to get in. Everyone who's paid is going to come and get on the call, and he's going to be able to indoctrinate them inside of what they're trying to push. You know what I mean? And so then from there, they're gonna come up top to start here, where we'll kind of have like, hey, here's what you need to do in order to get access to literally the rest of the Discord, right? I don't want anyone to have access to the Discord, anything else, unless they finish the 7 day activation series, because at the end of the day, we're banking on them telling a friend to tell a friend. Um, but you guys can't even see that. Let me hide my DMs real quick. Um, and so then you have like, okay, we want you guys to have a baseline post where it says age, where you're from, what position you play, what are your strong suits, and then here are the baseline drills that we need you to do every single day to go from there, and then we move forward. You check in on day three, and from day three check-in, that's when I'll go in and I'll DM them personally, right on WAP or on Discord, and be like, hey, I saw that you're doing at blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? How's the course going for you? How do you feel? Do you see the like the small improvements that you're making? And then day seven, they post the final results from the baseline, and then they get that badge, and it unlocks the rest of the Discord, right? In the rest of the Discord, we talk about the import. No, that's when I'm gonna come in and talk about the importance of academics, because even the creator, he went to Northwestern for 2 3 years, and then he went to Indiana, which are two really good schools to go to for academics. Right, we have a place where we want to hold people accountable for GPA. So whether you have a good GPA or whether you're struggling academically, we want to have, because if people are going to have the best chance to continue their basketball career after high school, academics are a really good strong factor. And so we're going to have accountability. We're going to have study hall where people are talking about studying, test prep whenever it comes to like ACT and SAT, recruitment eligibility. We're going to have some like the college guys kind of come in and talk about like what they're doing, and kind of like mental discipline on like why, if you do better in school, you're going to be a better basketball player. You know what I mean? We're going to have the daily work log where people are going to come in, post themselves working out daily. You know what I mean? Kind of talk about like, hey, here's what I'm working on, here's where I'm struggling. Ball handling, finishing, shooting, where they kind of just go and activate it and kind of go deeper into the topic. And then we're going to have film breakdowns where they're going to be able to come in, and then like the pro levels and then like the actual creator are going to be able to come in and break down like, hey, here's what's going on with your film. Here's what you should be doing. Here's why. The X, Y, and Z, and kind of going from there. And then Miller's like the actual creator is going to come in and he's going to break down like his actual game footage, why he's doing this, and how some of the workouts that he has inside this course kind of translate to all of this, right? Then you have kind of basketball IQ, where we kind of just want people to get smarter when it comes to basketball. And here's like the most important part, where we're going to be showing wins, where it's like, hey, I just became a starter on my AU team. I just had my best game ever, right? You know what I mean? X, Y, and Z. We have accountability, where we're going to hold people accountable to the goals that they set inside the Discord, and kind of like have everyone be able to call them out or kind of push them, congratulate them from there. Recruiting talk, you know what I mean? Where it's like, hey, I'm getting offers, uh, or hey, you know, I'm talking with this X, Y, and Z, or or how should I take official visits, or X, Y, and Z, right? A general chat, talk about bullshit, X, Y, and Z, a solo combine leaderboard where we're gonna go in, we're gonna be like, hey, this month's leaders are at go from there, and it's all gonna be only strictly the leaderboard. There's gonna be no other conversations in here. And then the people who finish in the top three in the leaderboard, they're going to have their own separate chat so we could further activate them and get them around further winners. You know what I mean? And then the creators going to come in whenever we go to the voice calls and have monthly check-in calls. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, hey, like every single month, he's going to come sit down for an hour and kind of just go over like, as many people in Discord, like their current situation, what they're working on, and from there. And then we also want to have like a guest speaker section, right? And so my belief is that if we're able to nail this, is that we'll be able to have further activation and kind of not have to ever worry about spending money on ads because the community is going to sell and grow itself. You know what I mean? Where we're going to have other people who've kind of come in and change their trajectory of their basketball career come in and be like our top affiliates and kind of send traffic to this where the offer isn't really mainly pushed by this one creator, but it's pushed by other basketball players as a whole, and we kind of just go from there. Um, so yeah, that's kind of like my entire spiel on traffic versus acquisition and kind of like everything that I've kind of like learned and worked on over the week. It's a bitch writing all this out, like writing all this copy, getting to like the Discord automations and shit like that kind of set up. But I do feel like once I get everything set up that this is going to kind of pay off. Um, and then like we'll make a shit ton of money. So it's like, yeah, if you guys have any questions for me, um, yeah, go ahead and ask them in the chat. I'll answer them. And then we'll just rip and run from there. So yeah, y'all ask questions or I'll get off in a couple minutes because I do want to post the vlog on YouTube and kind of just go from there. All right. I guess there's no questions. I'll post the VOD on YouTube. If you guys have any questions, just ask in the Discord and we'll kind of just rip and run from there. See y'all boys.